What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. And happy training camp week, everybody. I know we ripped through our previews last week, offense, defense. If you missed those, make sure you go back, Patriots Press Pass, subscribe, and watch those as well. But we figured we would jump on here, Brian Hines with Alex Barth, as always, because we were down at Gillette Stadium today. Mike Vrabel talked, players, veterans back in the building. We heard from a couple of them. And we also got some injury updates and news, some PUP candidates, some NFI candidates, some guys who were cleared for injury since the last time we talked. So we thought we would jump back on here Tuesday night before the first practice tomorrow on Wednesday and just update everything, set the stage so we are ready to go tomorrow. So we will start with those injuries and we'll start with some good news. Stefon Diggs is cleared, no limitations, Mike Vrabel said today, from that ACL that was, 7, 8, 9 months removed, not that long from last October. So Stefon Diggs is good to go, not on the PUP list. You know, we saw him in the spring. He looked really good, but he wasn't in full team drills. Mike Vrabel again said no limitations today for the wide receiver opening up camp. So Barth, great news in the wide receiver department because the Patriots could have their top guy. Seems like he's still tracking for week 1 here with this news, especially.
Yeah, I was one of the people blaying everybody who said that week 1 wasn't really an option, but here we are. It feels like it is, and it's, tremendous, the timeline, and we'll see how much he actually performs, but a tremendous timeline just to get to this point. And, he's on that same timeline as Bourne. I want to remind everybody, and look, maybe this was just the coaching staff last year and things being a mess, but, Kendrick Bourne, based on kind of the way he talked about things and the way other people talked about things, probably could have physically played week 1 last year, but the issue was he wasn't ready for camp, so he was kind of a few steps behind, and they figured it would be better to use those 4 weeks as a true ramp-up period since he didn't get that in camp. That's what's big about this, is that Stefon Diggs is going to be able to hit the ground running, right? He's going to be able to work in the offense. He's going to be able to work through his chemistry with Drake May, get used to timing and ball placement, things like that. And so it's not just that he can play week 1, but there's a big difference between, okay, he had 1 week of practice in camp and then he's out there versus he had the whole summer. And so if he's really going to have the whole summer, that'd be outstanding. Now we'll still see, right? Vrabel said he's not going to play every rep, and I know he said nobody plays every rep, but I think that was kind of tongue in cheek. When we left off in the spring, he wasn't doing team drills. So let's see how involved he is in full speed team drills. I would expect it to be more than the spring. I don't know if it's going to be 100% right away. I don't think it needs to be 100% right away. You'd like him to be out there a good amount, and you kind of ramp up towards that 100% probably around the second preseason game. But if you had told me back in March this was the case, I would have told you to take the footy pajamas off. Like, what an unbelievable job by Diggs, by his team, by the Patriots medical staff to get him ready. And if this is real and he continues this, now at this point, the biggest thing is you're crossing your fingers there's no setback, right?
Yep.
But if he can continue this momentum, there's no reason to think he can't play week 1. And like you said, they're off the top, Brian. If he's healthy, he's their best receiver. This is a guy that was on a 1,000-yard pace last year. And I will say, I haven't done like a ton of deep research on this, but I looked at this a little bit today. You know how with the torn ACL, people always kind of talk about, well, it's that second year, right? You miss a year with the injury. Then the next year you're back on the field, but you're not yourself. And it's usually that second year where you're fully back up to speed. It seems like the guys who heal fastest in terms of just getting back on the field, the guys that get back on the field quicker, also kind of dodge that gap year more so. Again, the apex of this, the chief example is Adrian Peterson winning the MVP 8 months after tearing his ACL, or starting that season 8 months after he tore his ACL in 2012. So I don't even think Diggs needs to do that for this to be considered a wild success. I would take it. I don't know if a wide receiver could win MVP in the NFL anymore. So there's that thing. But the fact that he's back so quickly, I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, but the fact he's back he's back so quickly, does that bring up hopes that, like, and hey, maybe on top of that, he dodges kind of the feeling it back out year?
The drop off. Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking I looked up Welker when you were doing those stats, and he still posted because when did he tear it? Like late December.
He was
January,
yeah,
he
about
came
8
back
months.
and he was still 86 catches, 848 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Which, like, based off the Patriots receiver rooms of late, that sounds unbelievable. But then you look at the next year, and he jumped back up. Welker again, 122 for nearly 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he had that little bit of he was still productive, but he wasn't the typical Wes Welker you remembered until that second year after. So hopefully he can limit it. But just back to the timeline for Diggs, like it is incredible. We knew he was busting his ass based off all the videos that were posted. And he was saying from the jump that he was ahead of schedule and ready to go. But I remember when he signed and we jumped on here that night. And while we were alive, like Adam Schefter put out a tweet that, Diggs is expected to go for week 1. We were like, all right, that's probably just his agent, pumping this deal up a little bit more and ready to go. And then we were saying how much we loved that it was a 2-year deal, because then what if Diggs went throughout the whole summer without catching a pass from Drake May, right? And then he's coming back
Right.
in week 5, and then the chemistry really starts that second year. So the fact that he was catching passes from Drake May in the spring, and now he's going to have, as you said, maybe he's not 100% out there every snap, every rep, playing preseason games as he comes back from this. But the fact that he's just going to be out there, he was with them, in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. They've been running routes, they've been throwing, catching, learning each other. It's just great news because they need that boost in the wide receiver room. And if he is healthy in week 1, which looks like he's definitely trending, that's going to be big for Drake in this offense in the wide receiver room.
Yep.
But
and you also just get him out there with the other players too, which is good news.
Yeah, exactly. Hunter Henry was saying that today. You just get his energy out there. They can learn how to play off each other. So,
well, it also kind of looks like he's maybe their wide receivers coach, which isn't the
true.
best thing, but if he's going to do it, you want him out there doing it, right?
You want him out there. Yep. Because their other wide receiver, that's also a little bit of a wide receivers coach, Mac Hollins. He is starting on the PUP list after he didn't participate all spring. So he will be out. Austin Hooper also will be out to throw another wrench into that. We talked a lot about the tight end 3. Is someone going to emerge? A lot of opportunities for those guys right out of the gate, with Austin Hooper sideline. So we'll see there. Someone also asked, let me find it up here. Would you have any interest in Noah Fant, who was released with Austin Hooper on the PUP list? Maybe you go a week or 2 with the guys you have, and if Hooper still isn't back and none of them are impressed, are you looking at maybe another veteran in that room like Noah Fant? Would that interest you?
Look, if Austin Hooper can't go, I think Noah Fant's a good replacement. Certainly. I like Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant's a good player. I don't know that he makes a ton of sense as a third tight end unless they're really worried about Hooper or Henry's health. Usually you want somebody in that role who doesn't give you what the other 2 spots give you, whether it be an H-back like Jaheim Bell, a more pure blocker like CJ Dupree. So I don't know. The Patriots, where their roster's at, they should take talent when they should get it. So I'm inclined to say, yeah, if you can get Noah Fant, I'm not opposed. I don't know that, like, him being a good receiver, how often are you in 3 tight end sets? I don't know how much he's going to do for you on a game-to-game basis. He's more just really good insurance for the top 2 guys, which maybe you need. Like, maybe you look at that and say, and Austin Hooper's another year older. He's in a contract here again. Maybe you just get Fant now. You can get him, and then he becomes part of your long-term plans. I'm not inherently out on Noah Fant because I like the player. I don't know how much he helps the 2025 Patriots, but he's also just somebody I wouldn't hate getting in the door. So fine, if you could sell me on him.
All right. Yeah, so we'll see what happens when Hooper makes his return, and then if one of those other tight ends that are currently on the roster can make a push while he is sidelined. And then the last guy on offense who opened on the PUP list was Vidarian Lowe. Didn't see much of him throughout the spring, recovering from offseason shoulder surgery. So he's not starting, right? We have Will Campbell, left tackle, Morgan Moses, who is not on the list. So that's good news because he had offseason knee surgery. He's, 34 years old. He's getting up there. So he's ready, healthy to go. So you have your two starting tackles, but there is some competition there for a swing tackle. Are they going to keep just one? Are they going to keep two on the active roster? Or is it, like a Caden Wallace who has the versatility factor in there? So, Vidarian Lowe, and then they drafted Marcus Bryant as well. So Vidarian Lowe is going to have some competition. So probably not a great sign for him that he is starting on the PUP list with that shoulder injury there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, he's somebody that probably has to play multiple positions to make the team. So he's going to need more work to see if he can play at right tackle. Not a good start for him.
Yep. But the one last guy on PUP was Jelani Tavai, who we saw go down with that calf injury in OTAs. But Mike Vrabel did say today that he's expected to practice. So good news with Tavai. Also, if you go to the NFI list, just real quick, Carlton Davis was on it and wide receiver Jeremiah Webb. Both of those two also in that kind of bucket, expected to practice tomorrow. So whatever they were dealing with, minor injury. But just back to Tavai, because that, weak side linebacker who's next to Robert Spillane. We've talked a lot about that role and who's going to kind of seize that opportunity. We'll get a good look now with Tavai. Like, is it Tavai? Is it Christian Ellis? Do you have a favorite, or how do you think that competition could kind of shake out?
So Ellis is making the team. It just comes down to what they want. We've talked about this, right? If they want that downhill thumper as kind of an alternate to what they have, then Tavai makes a lot of sense. If it's the off-ball guys, Tavai's probably out. It's a lot more crowded between Marte Mapu. Does, Monty Rice work his way into the picture, having played for Mike Vrabel before? So that's going to be more of it'll be interesting to see how they kind of use those guys early on in these practices. And what's their preference for that last linebacker spot?
Yep. Should get a good look at that early. And then just the last guy who was on a list was safety Josh Minkins. He was also on that non-football injury list, but unlike Davis in Webb, Vrabel didn't mention his status. So
I thought he said he'd be back in a few days.
I thought did he say that?
He said that about somebody. It was Minkins because he said Webb was going to be back tomorrow.
Let me pull up the
transcript. I can see if I can find it here. There it is. He said,
and then Minkins maybe a few more days. So that doesn't seem that serious for him.
No. So. Well, you just got to be any player. You just got to be back by the time pads come on.
Exactly. So those are the guys on list. A couple of them will come off tomorrow, it seems like, and maybe again Minkins there a few days later. Did anyone who was limited throughout the spring that wasn't on a list catch your attention? Like Vrabel specifically pointed out when asked about Stefon Diggs, like Marcus Epps was someone who also tore his ACL last year, and he is cleared, ready to go. Also in that safety room, like Kyle Duggar dealt with a lot of injuries last year. He seems ready to go. I mentioned Morgan Moses, Mike Onwenu. Like, did anyone in that limited group from the spring that is healthy, ready to go, stand out to you? Jalen Polk too, even any of those guys stand out?
Yeah, Polk, Epps, certainly. You guys know I'm a fan of his, and they need that deep safety, and maybe he can be that guy. Diggs, you mentioned. Kyle Duggar, because Kyle Duggar participated less than he wasn't out there in the spring. Guys like Vidarian Lowe, Vidarian Lowe was in uniform. He was kind of off to the side stretching and things like that, but he was on the field and he was doing individual drills. Mac Hollins wasn't in uniform, but he was out there on the field. We didn't see Kyle Duggar. I think he was present briefly at a couple of those practices, but we really didn't see him. He seemed as worse for wear as anybody. So the fact that he's not even on the list, we'll see how limited he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in a red non-contact jersey, if they're even still doing that, right? They didn't do it in the spring. It was yellow pennies instead. But yeah, Duggar not being on the list feels pretty significant.
Yeah. Definitely. Mapu too on that defense. He was kind of in and out in the spring a bit there, and we know he's going down a linebacker now. So hopefully he can be healthy and make kind of a push here during the summer. But that is it for the injury news. We're going to jump over to some other kind of newsworthy things and what Mike Vrabel had to say. But before we do that, very quickly, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks and Do You Know Ball, because we know football is back soon, right around the corner, regular season. We can put some of those Patriots players in our Prize Picks lineup. But while we continue to wait, baseball is coming down the stretch. Women's basketball is in full force, and you can spice up the action on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. This summer, you can just pick more or less on player stats like hits, home runs, strikeouts, and more for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today, and even take advantage of their weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday tonight, each Tuesday, where projections can be discounted from 15 to 25%. You know, I'm still rolling with Roman Anthony. His bat is still red hot, so I'm putting him in my lineup more than half a hit. Or if you want to get a little crazier, more than 1.5 total bases, RBIs, home runs, it's all available. Put him in your lineup and pair that with someone else for a winner there. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. Back to today. No other big newsworthy things from, I guess the big newsworthy thing from Vrabel, besides Diggs and the injuries, Terrell Williams is back, which back in the building, said players, coaches were excited to see him. So just good for Terrell Williams, first of all, you know, dealing with a major health injury or issue, getting to be back, get the defensive coordinator back in the building. Good to start the summer that way. But did anything else from Vrabel specifically kind of stand out to you, or big takeaways from his media availability today there?
So he kind of laid out how practices are going to work, which was a nice, that's good info. We're going to get some walkthrough days, which there might be a couple 15-minute shows here in the future of the Patriots Beat training camps. Those will be interesting. But, it seems very opposite of last year. It was, all right, we're going to stretch, we're going to do individuals. And then the last 75% of practice, we're going to go 11 on 11 full speed. And that's what it was. And it was super exciting and fun to watch.
Which is kind of how this spring was, honestly.
No, I think it was more nuanced this spring because they would do the on air, then the 7 on 7, then the 11 on 11 walkthrough, then the 11 on 11 full speed, right? And they'd cycle through that. So I think it's going to be more nuance to that. And again, we'll get those full install days, which maybe they had in the spring that we didn't see. That would make sense that we didn't see those days. And then that quote came up again, right? About we got to be good enough to overcome bad football. That thing came back again. And he mentioned they're making progress and they kind of just got to cut out all the, what do you say? There's the good, the bad, and the shitty, right?
Yeah.
And they got to cut out that third category. So, but I just, you guys have heard me talk a lot about it. I love that that's their message right now. I really do. I do, because I think that, long-term, is that alone a sustainable strategy? No. For a team that has won 4 games the last 2 years, has largely underperformed. I don't think we looked at either of those teams. I know some of you smartasses are going to say you did, but I don't think we looked at either of those teams, especially the last year with Belichick, and said this is a 4-win team. I don't think anybody had Super Bowl aspirations, but I don't think anybody looked at it as like there were games they should have won that they didn't win, I think is the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
Right.
They were doing the bad football. That was costing
right for a team that is back-to-back 4-win years, a team that's played a lot of bad football in that span, and a team that has a very weak schedule this year. Capitalizing on bad football can go a long, long way. And that's step one, right? You're going to build on top of that. But when you're talking about pillars, as far as year one goes, well, they still have to improve the roster. Like the roster's not close to good enough. They still need 1-2 more off seasons to really get this thing in a contending shape. But for where they're at right now, I think that that's a really good, realistic goal. Hey, let's just all 17 weeks this year, let's not be the dumber team. Maybe we're not going to be the most talented team every week, but let's not make the most mistakes. That would be a huge step forward if they can do that. I know that sounds like a low bar, and in some ways it is. And I won't be harping on this as much next year. Next year, you have to get better than that. But I love that seems to be a message that's percolating inside the walls.
Definitely. Yeah. The amount of times they've just kind of shot themselves over the foot the last 2 years, and even dating back to, maybe 2022, I always think about the game in Cincinnati, or the game, it was home against Cincinnati, where they're down and then they come back, and then, Mondre fumbles down at the end. Like they just kept shooting themselves in the foot way too many times over the last 2.5 years. So to just cut out the shit, as Mike Vrabel said, and get to the good, and even the bad is better than the shit. Like, that's a good place to kind of start to turn this thing around, especially with the schedule looking how it was. So good to see that come back up again. We heard Jabril Peppers talking about that and Forge and Foxborough, which we could also talk about in a second there. But was there anything else from Vrabel? He did say, we always talk about the competitions between, roster and positional battles. He did say he looks forward to the first day of pads, because you never know, as we say, the pads can come on and just something just flips completely for some of these guys. So that's always an exciting time to see if someone just game completely looks different when the pads come on and they can start making their push there. But anything else from Vrabel today that caught your attention?
I mean, the getting at Volan for asking the repeat question, like that thing's back, right? The coach with a little bit of edge, a little bit of attitude, which I like.
We're on our toes. We got to be on our toes now.
Gotta be.
But yeah, day one, you don't want to get caught slacking. But all right, so that was most of the news worthy today. We got one, we talked about our uniforms. We did get some throwback dates. Some good ones too. These should be some good jersey matchups. We haven't got the new jersey yet, but Pat the Patriot will be worn week 3 against the Steelers and week 13 against the Giants. So, which is Monday Night Football as well. So those have a chance to be some really good uniform games there for the Patriots with those throwback reds that we all love.
So the Steelers are not wearing their throwbacks in that game. They said that they're not breaking those out to week 8. So yes, that would be a great uniform matchup.
They're only wearing their yellow throwbacks against the one other yellow team in the league, the Green Bay Packers, of course.
And so Aaron Rodgers' revenge game, he's going to look ridiculous. But the Giants didn't wear their like color rush white throwback jerseys last year. They replaced them with those Montreal Canadiens alternates. Hopefully that's a one-year thing. If the Giants wear their throwbacks week 13, that'd be awesome.
That would be really clean. That would be a good jersey matchup. Now, the ones the Bills put out today, they wore the red helmets last year, right? That wasn't their rival jersey.
So, yes and no. They did not wear the red helmets last year. But the red maybe their rival jersey is going to have red helmets. I don't know. I do know that specific thing that they announced today, they're wearing red helmets in honor of the last game at that stadium. That's what the red helmet is, because it's the last game there. So they're honoring it in that way. Because they obviously wore that when they were the most successful, because the most successful the Bills have ever been is being the biggest choking dogs in the Super Bowl in history, losing 4 years in a row. So that I'm not going to say no, the rivalry helmets aren't red, because I don't know, but that was independent of that. Yeah. I'm really starting to think the rivalry uniforms are going to come like Labor Day weekend or later. Like I talked about this, I think, on this show. In college, when you have a special uniform like that, usually Nike announces it a week or 2 before the game. Like, teams do uniform rollouts mid-season. I wonder, because they have really 4 to roll out. It's 8 because there's 2 divisions, but they're probably going to roll them out in pairs, because my theory is the divisional teams are going to wear them against each other, right? So my guess is that this is going to be a rolling rollout over the course of the season. So if you look at when the Patriots divisional games are, they have Miami week 2 in Miami, Buffalo week 5, and then they don't have any divisional games again until November. So if it's not one of those first 2 games, they might be one of the last teams getting a rollout, which I wouldn't hate. Build the suspense. But yeah, I think, and yeah, this is a good point. Nike does it with City Connect too. Thank you, Cameron. Right, the City Connectors, some of them come out before the season, especially they're going to be worn early. Some of them come out later. Usually they're all mid-season. I don't think it's going to be much later than November. I think that next divisional game is November 13th against the Jets. Probably one of those first 3 games. So it's at Miami, at Buffalo, and then home versus the Jets. I doubt it would be later than that, but I don't think this is going to be something that like we get leading up to the season. I'm starting to think at this point, if they're going to roll it out, it's going to be in season. And just because we get, let me pull up the NFL schedule. Like, if there's a divisional game week 1 for one of these divisions, which I don't know if there is, I would imagine there is.
It's the AFC East and
NFC West.
NFC West, right.
So the Cardinals play the Saints. We're going to do this live because it's good radio. The Dolphins play the Colts. All right, so Niners Seahawks week 1, right? So just because we get the Niners Seahawks ones leading up to week 1, I don't think that's a guarantee that, okay, so the Patriots ones are coming because they announced those. I think it might be a slower burn, a slower rollout. So AFC East, both week 2, both divisional games, Bills, Jets, Patriots, Dolphins. And then in the West, it is, okay, the Niners play the Saints, so that's not. The Seahawks play the Steelers, Rams play the Titans. I don't know where the other team is, but you get the point.
Yep. Keeping us on our toes, potentially.
I wonder, maybe they do, since it's 2 AFC East games, I wonder if it's week 2, and those are both. Maybe they do it for both games week 2.
And then week 3, it's Miami at Buffalo Thursday night. So I don't know if they would want to do it Thursday night like that.
They might. They like to get New Jerseys in prime time, yeah. But that would probably mean it's not Patriots Miami week 2.
Yeah.
So well, this is just a theory. They could announce it tomorrow for all I know. I really don't. But just this is Nike's new thing, is these in-season uniform announcements. So kind of seems like if it were me, if they were going to do it, they would have done it already.
Yeah.
But they're also, I'll add this too, just from my very limited marketing background. If they're going to do it, it is going to be in the first half of the season because they need enough lead time for parents to get them for their kids for the holidays. They're not going to announce it like a week before Christmas, right? Because they want to make sure that they're selling them for the holidays, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't think they would announce it, and because training camp is so busy, they wouldn't announce a jersey, but they also, it's still weird they dropped it like right in the middle of the NFL draft, like in between day 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It kind of got lost in the shuffle, so who knows? But yeah, maybe it is mid-season.
The NFL making a mess out of messaging? No way.
I know, so weird.
Crazy.
But
never heard of anything like that.
They'll get those sales up still, as someone says. They'll get those sales up on those jerseys at some point here. So, all right, that is injury updates. Mike Vrabel today, jersey updates. Anything else before we get out of here, Barth, or should we go get some sleep before first practice?
Well, there's a big Sox game tonight first. But McLaurin. I have kind of, and Trey Hendrickson, neither one reported. Hendrickson, I still believe, is going to get traded. Like that thing is just, when you have the owner up there kind of saying, we don't know if we can get it done, it's probably not going to get done. I've said for a long time, it would be organizational malpractice. It would be beyond stupid for the Commanders to move on from Terry McLaurin. I also thought McLaurin was the guy that would at least hold in. I thought McLaurin would be in the building. Him not being there, to me, sends a very strong message. I'm looking at this a little bit differently now. If I had to put money on it, I still think he stays. I was genuinely surprised that he didn't show up. And I don't think that that's nothing. And at this point now, I think I'm over the 50% mark on Hendrickson leaves Cincinnati. If he does, it's a 3rd-round pick that turns into a 2nd if he plays X number of snaps and has X number of sacks. That's the deal. And I'm doing it. Like I would absolutely, I don't know about you, Brian. I would absolutely do that.
Yeah. Either of those guys I'd be interested in. And Hendrickson, the door definitely feels very open. I mean, he's down in Florida.
Door's almost off the hinges.
Yeah, he was just like, I'm getting out of here. Going down to Florida to keep training. But McLaurin, I know both of us have kind of been on that same wavelength that it doesn't really make sense. But now that he's holding out, maybe, and he was at like that car dealership the other day saying they haven't even talked to me about a new deal. Maybe the door is just like, the handle's turned and it's just being started to push. Like it's a small sliver there. So maybe a little bit more likely. But yeah, if either of those guys, they can make a deal work, I would be for either of them there. But I
will say this. I don't think you're getting both. I don't think you're getting both because it's basically going to take the same assets to trade for one or the other. And I wouldn't trade back-to-back 2nd-round picks, right? And one's a future picks you're going to have to put more on. I'm taking McLaurin if it's a choice, but Hendrickson's much more likely to become available.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So I just texted somebody in Cincinnati. I don't think somebody in the media, I don't think my conditional 3rd idea would work. I give up a 2nd, maybe 2nd that becomes a 3rd if his performance is too low instead of the other way around.
Makes sense. So, yeah, we'll keep tracking those guys, see what happens. TJ Watt got his bag, so he's not going to become available, but Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin could be. So we'll keep tracking those guys again. But we'll wrap this up here. We'll be back the rest of the week. We got 4 practices to cover here, so we'll be back plenty. So make sure you're locked on to Patriots Press Pass. Turn on those notifications so you know when we're going live or any other videos from training camp get posted as well there. And again, subscribe, like the videos, help us out a lot, or wherever else you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, please subscribe there as well. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots training camp content there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our training camp Patriots coverage there as well. So thanks for everyone jumping on with us quickly tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow.